I never thought a simple no could flip my entire world upside down. It started as a normal conversation between me and my sister, nothing dramatic, nothing out of place. She came over one weekend, looking more tired than usual, like she had something heavy on her mind. At first, I didn't ask. We all go through things, and I figured she'd open up when she was ready. But she didn't waste any time. Within a few minutes of sitting down, she asked me for a favor, one that didn't seem right. And without thinking twice, I said no. I didn't mean it to hurt her. It was just one of those moments where your gut tells you something's off. Her eyes dropped, and she gave a small, understanding nod. She didn't argue, didn't beg, didn't try to convince me. She just said, okay, in a way that didn't feel okay at all. It was that kind of quiet where you know something else is coming. I thought that would be the end of it. But what she did next caught me completely off guard, and it's still hard to believe. You see, my sister and I have always had a complicated bond. We weren't the type to share every secret or cry on each other's shoulders, but we were there when it counted. At least, I thought we were. That day, I started to question everything I knew about her, about us, about loyalty, about trust. Her actions didn't just stir up problems in my life, they cracked open something much deeper. Something that made me question the kind of person I was becoming, and how blind I had been to the truth behind her smile. It didn't start with infidelity. That word came later, after the dust settled and the pieces were too scattered to fix. It started with a favor. A request that should have stayed between family. But she made a choice that dragged me into the kind of mess you only read about or watch in dramatic movies. Except this wasn't a movie. This was real. And I was right in the middle of it. The more I tried to walk away, the deeper I got pulled in. I couldn't understand her motives, not fully. Was it revenge? Desperation? Or had she simply lost herself in trying to fix her own broken world? All I knew was that saying no didn't stop anything. In fact, it set everything in motion. There's a moment you'll hear about later in the story, when I walked in and saw something I can never unsee. That moment still makes my chest tighten every time I think about it. It was the point where nothing made sense anymore, where love, betrayal, and family collided in the most twisted way. If you think this is just another story about cheating, you're wrong. This is a story about choices. About crossing lines you didn't even know existed. And the worst part? It all began with just one word, no. What happened after changed everything. It all started 2 weeks before that visit. My sister, Melanie, had been acting distant. Her calls became shorter, her texts slower. I thought maybe she was just dealing with work stress or maybe something going on in her marriage. She'd always been the strong one, head held high, smile always ready, even when life wasn't kind. But this time, her silence felt different. It was heavy, like she was carrying something too big to speak out loud. That weekend she came over, she looked hollow. Like someone who hadn't slept properly in days. I remember noticing the way her hands trembled slightly when she held her coffee. That wasn't like her. I asked if she was okay. She just looked at me with this half smile and said, "I'll be fine. I just need a small favor." It seemed harmless at first. She wanted to crash at my place for a few nights. Said she needed a break. I didn't question it too much. I mean, she's my sister. I told her sure, as long as she needed. But then she dropped the real reason. She told me her marriage was falling apart. That her husband, Ryan, had grown cold and secretive. She suspected he was cheating, but she didn't have proof. She wanted help getting answers. At first, I thought she meant emotional support, maybe just someone to talk to. But she had something else in mind. She asked me to follow him. Take pictures. Track where he went, who he met. She had even printed out a schedule of his usual routine, like she'd been planning this for a while. That's when I told her no. It just didn't sit right with me. I didn't want to be part of that kind of mess, even if she was family. I thought that was the end of it. But Melanie, she wasn't the kind of person who accepted a dead end. Especially not when she felt betrayed. What I didn't know was that while I was backing away, trying to stay clear of the drama, she was already 2 steps ahead, doing something that would drag me into a situation I couldn't escape. And just like that, the lines between right and wrong started to blur. I didn't realize it then, but the moment I refused to help her, she found her own way to get what she wanted, and in doing so, she opened a door that would pull me into a truth I wasn't ready to face. 3 days after Melanie left my apartment, I got a message from her. It was short. Just a location, a time, and the words, "You'll want to see this." I didn't reply. I stared at the screen for a while, trying to decide if I should just ignore it. But curiosity has a strange way of creeping in when you least expect it. So later that evening, I drove out to the address she sent, an upscale hotel on the other side of town. I wasn't sure what I was walking into, but something in my gut told me I'd regret not going. The lobby was quiet, polished, too perfect. I waited for her near the back entrance, scanning every face that walked by. 10 minutes passed before she appeared, wearing sunglasses even though the sun had already dipped. She didn't say anything, just motioned for me to follow. Up the elevator, down a long hallway, and then she stopped outside one of the rooms. Her hand hovered over the door handle like she was hesitating. Then she whispered, "Just watch." And that's when I realized she already had a key. She slid the card in, pushed the door slightly open, and stepped aside. I didn't want to look. But I did. Inside, I saw Ryan, her husband, standing way too close to another woman, someone I recognized. And that's when everything got twisted. The woman wasn't a stranger. It was Lisa. My ex. The one I thought I had buried in the past. Seeing her there, with him, made my mind race. Questions flooded in. How did Melanie know? Was this part of some plan, or was it all just a terrible coincidence? Either way, I wasn't just a bystander anymore. I was part of it, deeply. Later that night, Melanie told me she hadn't just followed Ryan. She'd followed Lisa too. She said something about patterns and how all the signs were there. It was like she'd become a detective in her own life, but her obsession with catching the truth had spilled into mine. I was angry, confused, and mostly numb. Because now the betrayal wasn't just hers. It was mine too. What I didn't know was that this was only the surface. Melanie wasn't just hunting for evidence. She was setting something up, something much bigger. And I was standing right in the middle of it without even knowing how far it would go. After that night at the hotel, things started moving fast. Melanie stopped asking for help. She didn't need to. I was already too involved, whether I liked it or not. She started acting like everything was normal, calm, even. But I could see it in her eyes. She was planning something. Something calculated. Every time I tried to bring it up, she'd change the subject. Let it play out, she'd say with this eerie calmness. And the worst part? I listened. I couldn't shake the image of Lisa and Ryan together. It replayed in my head constantly. I had so many questions and no answers. How long had this been going on? Did Lisa know she was getting involved with my sister's husband? Or worse, did they both know what they were doing to us and just didn't care? My thoughts were a storm I couldn't shut off, and Melanie, she was the eye of it. Quiet, still, focused. Then things took another strange turn. I came home from work one evening and found an envelope slid under my door. No name, no return address, just a video file on a USB. I hesitated before plugging it into my laptop. The screen flickered and then played a grainy recording, footage from a hidden camera. Ryan and Lisa again. But this time, they weren't just meeting. They were talking about Melanie. About money. About leaving everything behind. Lisa even mentioned me by name. It felt like a punch to the gut. I called Melanie right away, my hands shaking. "Did you send this?" I asked. There was a pause. Then she said, "You needed to see what they really are." I didn't know what to say. My head was spinning. She had been watching them for longer than I thought. Maybe too long. Maybe long enough to stop thinking clearly. The next few days were tense. Melanie vanished, no calls, no texts. Her apartment was locked, and her phone went straight to voicemail. I started to worry, not just about her, but about what she was capable of. Because knowing my sister, once she committed to something, she saw it through, no matter the cost. Then I got the message. One line. "Meet me where it all started." My chest tightened. I knew exactly where she meant. And I knew whatever was coming next would change everything. Forever. The message haunted me all night. Meet me where it all started. That could only mean one place, our childhood home, the old cabin by the lake our parents used to take us to every summer. We hadn't been there in years. The place had been locked up and left to nature after Dad passed. It was quiet, secluded, and the last place anyone would look. I left before sunrise, my mind racing, not knowing what I was about to walk into. The drive felt longer than usual. Every turn of the road brought more unease. When I finally pulled up, the place looked almost the same: weathered wood, overgrown weeds, and that same silence that once felt peaceful now felt like warning. Melanie's car was already parked outside. The door to the cabin was ajar. My heart pounded as I stepped inside. She was there, sitting on the old couch, calm as ever, like we were just two kids playing board games again. Except the look in her eyes wasn't childlike. It was focused, almost cold. "I knew you'd come," she said quietly. "What is this?" I asked, barely managing to keep my voice steady. "Why here?" Melanie stood up and walked over to the small coffee table. There were photos spread out, dozens of them. Pictures of Ryan. Lisa. Some of them together. Some of them apart. Some that looked like they were taken months ago. And then there were others, of me. At work. At home. With friends. Watching TV. That's when it hit me. "You've been watching me too," I said slowly, my stomach twisting. "I had to," she whispered. I didn't know who to trust. Not after I found out about them. Not after everything started to feel fake. Her voice cracked for the first time. But even then, I couldn't tell if it was sadness or exhaustion. Maybe both. "I never betrayed you, Mel," I said. I didn't even know she was with him. "I haven't spoken to Lisa in years." "I believe you now," she replied, her voice soft. "But it's too late. They're planning to disappear. Tonight." I froze. "What do you mean disappear?" "I mean they're leaving with everything. Money. Accounts. The house. Ryan moved everything under Lisa's name. If we don't stop them tonight, it's over." Before I could respond, she handed me something, an audio recorder. "I got him to confess," she said. "He doesn't know I recorded it. But this changes everything." And just when I thought the twists were done, she dropped one more. "There's someone else involved," she whispered. "Someone you won't see coming." My chest tightened. "Who?" She looked away, hesitated, then said, "You'll know when you see them." I didn't know what to feel anymore: fear, betrayal, confusion. All I knew was that the truth was deeper than I imagined. And the worst part? The night wasn't over yet. The ride back into the city was silent. Melanie and I didn't speak. There was nothing left to say, just the tension of what was coming. We had the recording, the evidence, the timeline. Ryan and Lisa were planning to fly out tonight, just past midnight, using fake names and accounts that Melanie had somehow traced. I still didn't understand how she had gotten so deep into their lives, but I didn't ask. I was just trying to keep up. We reached the private terminal where their flight was scheduled. Melanie had already tipped off someone, an investigator she trusted, someone she said used to work with Ryan in the finance world. He has a reason to want this exposed, she told me. He's the only one I could count on. We waited inside the car, parked behind a row of trees just off the edge of the lot. The airport was quiet, just a few vehicles, a small jet parked on the tarmac, and a black SUV pulling in. My heart nearly stopped when I saw them. Ryan stepped out first, holding Lisa's hand. They looked relaxed, like two people escaping a life they no longer cared about. Melanie gripped the recorder in her hand. Now, she whispered. We got out of the car and walked fast but calm toward them. I could see Lisa freeze the second she noticed me. Her hand let go of Ryan's, and her expression changed. Shock? Guilt? Maybe both. Ryan turned around slowly, as if he already knew what was happening. You don't get to walk away, Melanie said, holding the recorder up. Not after what you did. Before Ryan could say a word, the investigator stepped in, flashing a badge. Everything happened fast after that. Officers moved in, Ryan tried to run, Lisa yelled something I couldn't even make out. The recording was played, and just like that, their web of lies started unraveling. Fraud. Conspiracy. Theft. They weren't just having an affair, they were planning a complete erasure of their past lives, and Melanie had stopped it with minutes to spare. But just when I thought it was over, the final twist hit me like a punch I didn't see coming. As they were being taken away, Melanie turned to the investigator and said, I held up my part. Now hold up yours. He nodded slowly and handed her a folder. She looked at me and said, this was never just about them. I opened the folder, and my blood ran cold. Inside were documents. My name. My identity. Transactions I never made. Accounts I didn't know existed. You were a target too, she said quietly. They planned to frame you as the fall guy if anything went wrong. I couldn't speak. Melanie stepped closer and added, you said no in the beginning. But if you hadn't, they might have succeeded. I stood there, stunned. Everything I thought I knew had flipped again. I had been saved by the same sister I once doubted. And the truth? It had been darker than either of us imagined. The days that followed felt like a blur. Investigators dug deeper into the accounts Ryan and Lisa had created under my name. It turned out they'd been planning to vanish and pin a large portion of the financial fraud on me, leaving me to face the fallout. If Melanie hadn't stepped in when she did, if she hadn't trusted her instincts, done the digging, or sent me that message, I would have been caught in the middle of a storm I didn't see coming. Melanie gave everything to expose the truth. Her obsession wasn't just about catching Ryan cheating, it was about saving herself, and without knowing it, saving me too. She told me later that something hadn't felt right from the beginning. The way Ryan acted distant, the strange changes in their finances, the secrecy, it all added up, but no one believed her. She said she knew if she didn't fight for the truth, no one else would. We both had to sit through hours of questioning, handing over every email, message, and recording. The evidence was strong. Lisa confessed first. She broke when the pressure got too much. Ryan tried to act like he was a victim, but there was too much pointing straight to him. The accounts. The travel plans. The audio confession. It all added up. Eventually, they were both charged. Not just for the affair, but for attempted identity theft, financial fraud, and conspiracy. Their carefully built escape plan fell apart piece by piece. As for me, it took a while to process it all. I had trusted Lisa once, years ago. I never imagined she'd show up again in my life under circumstances like these. The betrayal stung, not just for what she did with Ryan, but for how close she came to ruining everything I had worked for. Melanie and I sat together a few weeks later at the same cabin by the lake. The air felt lighter this time. No secrets hanging between us. Just the sound of wind moving through the trees. "I'm sorry for dragging you into this," she said quietly. "You didn't drag me," I replied. "You warned me. And I'm still trying to figure out how you saw what I didn't." She smiled faintly. "Sometimes the people closest to you wear the best masks." That sentence stayed with me. This wasn't just a story about infidelity. It was about trust, family, loyalty, and how sometimes saying no isn't enough, you have to stand and face the storm. I learned that danger doesn't always look like a stranger. Sometimes it walks right beside you, laughing, smiling, pretending everything's fine. But the real takeaway? Sometimes the one person you doubt turns out to be the only one willing to save you. And in my case, that person was my sister. The truth had cost us both something. But it gave us something too: clarity, closure, and a bond we'd never had before. And in the end, that was worth more than anything they tried to steal. 47.